let's get into the top end of the PDC. And the early year World Series events continued in Denmark at the weekend, and Peter Wright back in the winner's circle, beating the world numbers 3, 4 and 1 on Saturday to win the Nordic Darts Masters. How significant could this title be for him?
Well, I think more than anything, it shows that what I've said the last couple weeks may be right. And that's that there was nothing to worry about with Peter Wright. And I understand why people were worrying. He didn't win a title last year on television after the World Championships. He barely had a deep run at any major all year. And it wasn't like he was lighting up the floor of the Euro Tour either. So there were reasons to wonder what the state of his game was. I think they were legitimate questions, but I was never really worried. Early in the year, I think there was some of the fear of getting to world number one, the one real major thing he hadn't yet accomplished. Yes, there's a few majors that he's never won. He's never won the Grand Slam. He's never won the Grand Prix. There are majors that are still left to check off the CV, but the big thing that hadn't been checked off was world number one. Crossing that line and becoming world number one early in the year did seem to be a step that was still getting to him. He didn't, he fell apart against Gerwyn Price in that final when it was winner take all early in the year. And eventually he did get to number one after the UK Open. And for the next few months, he and Gerwyn Price went back and forth. And he never really reclaimed it for a long term because he didn't have success on television. But I don't think it was because he was necessarily losing motivation or playing poorly or anything. I think it was just he was biding his time for the World Championships. Like I've said the last few months, really. And when his wife had her health issues around the Grand Slam and then Players Championship, it ruined his preparation for the World Championships. He was getting ready to be at his best for the World Championships, and he lost a month of match preparedness because of that. And we saw that he was ready when he played this past week, beating the world number 3, beating the world number 4, beating the world number 1, like you said in the intro to the question, but also how he did it, how dominant he looked at times, averaging nearly 105 for most of that final, averaging well over the ton for most, well, not in the first round. He did not look great in the first round, but other than that, looked really good the entire weekend. And that's because he was at the peak of his game, or at least had time to get there. He ended up getting there a month later because of losing that time in the preparation, but he still was able to get there. Now the question is, how long is he going to maintain this, and how is he going to pace himself for the rest of the year? He has shown to everyone what he, I'm sure, always knew, which was that he was still one of the best players in the world, and he's still a player who can beat everyone, because he did beat everyone. He beat MVG, Michael Smith, and Gerwyn Price. But he's still a player who can beat anyone and everyone and lift a title. He knew that. Now we know that as well. But the question is, how is he going to pace himself? Because his goal is, sure, he would like to check off those events that I've mentioned that he hasn't won, but his goal is to win a third world title. He's 11 months away from that right now. So how is he going to pace himself this year? Is he going to set himself on that same track that he did last year and that he did the year before, and he did when he won the title the first time, to make sure that he's at his best come November and December? Or is he going to try to ride this for a little bit of time? There is something to be said about him riding this for a little bit of time. He still has never won the Premier League, and he's playing really well as the Premier League campaign is about to get underway. We're assuming he's going to be in the Premier League. By the time you're listening to this, they might have already announced that. But so there are things early in the year that maybe he'll want to keep this level of performance up for a bit. But the goal for him is to win a third world title. And that means, I think for him, this is just icing, proving to everyone else what he was trying to do last year and that he can still do that. And I think we'll maybe see a little bit of a regression as we get into the year, but at the back end of the year, we'll see Peter Wright try to do what he tried to do last year, what he did do the year before, what he did do when he won that first world title, and that's peak at the right time. I think that this doesn't really change anything. I think this title is significant because it shows that what he is doing is the correct thing to do to maximize his skills. But beyond that, it's just another title. And the goal is at the back end of the year, which is, well, as I said, 11 months away.
I put the tweet out half jokingly on Saturday night, times that people have written off Peter Wright, 39,000, and times that Peter Wright has bounced back and proven people wrong, the exact same number. And it's obviously not been that many times, probably more in fact. But coming into 2023, there were question marks around Peter Wright. His 2022 season was nowhere near as successful as his 2021 season. And as you touched on there were reasons off the hockey behind that. He took some time off in the summer. He had surgery to have his gallbladder removed. His wife Jo has been in and out of hospital during the last few months of the year, and we even saw that have an effect in the majors, where Peter Wright was defending the Players' Championship finals and withdrew from that event to spend time at home with Jo, and darts, quite rightly so, it wasn't a priority at that time. But you look back at his season, pocketed just under 250 grand in ranking money. Compare that to the season before, almost £900,000, and that includes his second world title, and before that the World Match Play, the Players' Championship finals. You've got the two biggest ranking titles in the PDC, another of them in Minehead, so 3 of the 7 TV ranking events that he won that year. So it was a special year for Peter Wright. But when you don't back it up the following year, it does mean you go into that third year, if you like, defending that prize money with some pressure on your shoulders. And we've not really started this season properly yet. We've not had any ranking events yet, but provisionally, Peter Wright, you look at the end of the year after this next World Championship, down at number 10 if you take off all the money that he won 2 years ago. And Peter Wright, he knows that himself. He said it at the weekend. He commented in one of his interviews, if I can still be in the top 10 at the end of this year, then that's a bonus. And that's the current world number 2 saying that. And the win at the weekend in Denmark, yes, it was a World Series event, didn't carry any ranking points as such. But these events, they still take some winning. And as we touched on at the start, he's beaten the other 3 players in the top 4 in the world in back-to-back games on the same day, and over a long format like it was the best of 19, best of 21, and played pretty well in all them games. And after the first round, coming through that decider against Dennis Nilsson on the Friday, he showed some good stuff on that Saturday. I think it was 22 140s against Michael van Gerwen, and the finishing is what really stood out in the other 2 games, the 50% against Michael Smith and then 55% against Gerwin Price, 102 average in the end in that final. So it's an important year coming up for Peter Wright. He'll be well aware of that, as he's already touched on. And I think the win, it is significant. It will give him some confidence heading into the new season, and to have beaten those 3 players as well. But he'll also know in the back of his head that there's a lot of work that he's going to need to do over these next 12 months if he is to preserve that place that he's got at the top end of the rankings, the top 2, top 3, top 4, top 5.